Now let's take the conversation this morning to South Africa. There have been mixed reactions across South Africa since news broke that the group CEO of the country's energy utility has suddenly resigned. Andre de Ruyter, Eskom Group Chief Executive, tendered his resignation yesterday as South Africa battles stage 6 load shedding.
De Ruyter, who was at the helm of the embattled utility for 3 years, will continue serving in his position until March 31st, 2023. Last night, the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa, NUMSA, said it was overjoyed at the news that the worst CEO in the history of Eskom's existence has finally decided to do the right thing and resign.
The Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, said the Ruyter was never qualified to be appointed Eskom CEO and has been hell-bent on collapsing the energy utilities generation capacity. Meanwhile, Trade Union Solidarity and Business Unity South Africa have both expressed disappointment at the Ruyter's resignation. Joining us this morning to discuss this is energy expert Shepo Galima to give us more on this matter. Good morning and thank you very much for joining us.
Well, greetings to you as well as the viewers of Breakfast Central.
All right, so now let's talk about the reactions to the Ruyter's resignation. There have been mixed reactions. On the one hand, there are people who are overjoyed, saying that the worst CEO of Eskom has resigned. On the other hand, there are people who think that the change was beyond him and there was nothing much he could do, especially because his hands were tied in certain areas. What are your thoughts? What is your position on this, and what is the general reaction to his resignation?
Well, my response and reaction is good riddance, and good riddance. That man should never have been appointed as CEO of Eskom in the first instance. And unfortunately, he's going to be there for another 105 days. And in that 105 days, he's going to effectively accept more harm because his leadership or lack of leadership, his inexperience, his incapacity to be able to manage a utility so important to the economic architecture of South Africa certainly does not warrant him. If anything, he should have been caused to leave yesterday when he tendered his resignation. But that also tells us that the board of Eskom is certainly out of depth. They are out of tune with what this utility is supposed to be. So if anything, I fear that South Africans must not hope for the best, but they must prepare for the worst, because the worst is yet to come. As you have mentioned, that rolling blackouts, what they call stage 6 load shedding now, it means that over 6,000 megawatt hours or 6,000 megawatts of electricity are not in the system, not being sold. So we have a Eskom here whereby by the end of the next financial year, which is 31 March 2023, it will, by all practicalities, it will be insolvent, it will be bankrupt. And it is not surprising that right at this juncture, Eskom has not still released the audited financial statements for the period ended March 2022. So Andre de Ruyter's resignation must be seen in context, and context of avoidance of responsibility and accountability for the mess which he created.
Well, you know, you're saying he created it. There's also people who believe that he was given a dead horse to ride of course, in Eskom. So I want you to react to that. You know, is him leaving what Eskom needs, or can the company itself, at this point still survive? Will a change of guard fix Eskom? Is there also, involvement of the South African government, in the whole process that has made this very difficult to be successful?
Well, look, he created the mess because he inherited a Eskom that was able to generate at least 33,000 megawatts of power. Since he came on board, he has not been able to generate 33,000 megawatts of power, which is the nominal demand of electricity in South Africa. But also, going forward, the government is also 100% to blame. First, the minister responsible, Pravin Gordhan, should never have been the minister in the first instance. All the appointments that he ever made in any of the state-owned companies, all of those have been disastrous. But when it comes to Eskom, even as recent as 75 days ago, 2.5 months ago, he appointed irregularly the current board of Eskom, a board of Eskom that was never put through any interview process. There was no clear criteria of recruitment and selection that was outlined. And it is not surprising, therefore, that this board, 75 days into the job, have still not been able to make sense of the nature and the state that Eskom is in. They have still not been able to make sense of the risks that are facing Eskom. One of those risks is that the Eskom bonds are about to be suspended from trading on the securities exchanges, both on the JSE in Johannesburg as well as in Luxembourg. So these are the risks that are there. But going forward, there must be a public interview process for whoever that will be the CEO of Eskom. And that public interview process will be able to assure the nation that whoever that is going to be appointed will have the experience, the expertise, the knowledge, and the fortitude to be able to withstand political interference, to be able to withstand the interference by the boards, because the boards of state-owned companies, in many instances, instead of leading the board, they always want to micromanage and manage the company. So you need a CEO who also can have to do what I term the Joe Biden 1 hour rule. Because we saw that Joe Biden, when he was inaugurated, he left the Capitol Hill after being inaugurated, went straight to the White House, and within the first hour of being at the White House, signed executive orders. So you need a CEO of Eskom who can observe that Joe Biden rule, that in the first hour of being appointed must take 5 major decisions. Those include cancelling all the take-or-pay coal supply contracts, cancelling all the independent power purchase contracts, stop the use of diesel, restructure the management. You have an entity that is bloated at the head office, where they have got well over 300 executive managers who are earning millions of rands each a year and doing absolutely nothing. That brings about confusion. You need then the CEO who can be able to have a direct line of sight to all the key executives at the power generation, as well as the transmission line, and as well as the distribution, and at all material times, in a real-time basis, know exactly how the system is performing and functioning, and be able to make the correct judgment calls. That is the type of a CEO that we need, and that CEO must be appointed from a public interview process, no different from how this country now appoints the Chief Justice of the country or the judiciary of the country, where there are interviews, so that we can know, we cannot be caught by surprise. Because had there been a public interview process, Andre de Ruyter would never have been appointed based on his atrocious track record at the company Nampec, which he destroyed. That when he took over, it was 55 billion rand in market capitalization. He left it at 5 billion rand market capitalization. He worked at Sasol at the Louisiana project in the United States. That project ended up in TSN with immense shareholder value destruction.
Right.
So therefore, had there been a public interview process, Andre de Ruyter would never have been appointed. But some of us, we mentioned at the time that he was the wrong man for the job. It's unfortunate that we have been proven right.
I mean, whilst we are hoping and waiting for the right man, of course, we're waiting for the 11th CEO of Eskom, which will be the 11th CEO in the past decade. We cannot ignore the fact that load shedding has been a big problem in South Africa, and that the maintenance of the power sector has been a struggle. So let's talk about what this resignation means for Eskom first, and then for South Africa. And I ask this because there have been conversations about how there is, an unstable leadership in Eskom now. The CEO has resigned. We hear that the CEO should be resigning soon, or rather retiring soon. There have been rumors about the CFO's position. We're not quite sure what's happening to that. So what does this mean for Eskom? What next? And then for South Africa as a whole?
Well, first and foremost, all the top 3 executives at Eskom, that's the CEO, the COO, as well as the CFO, they must all leave. And I've been making that call for a very long time now, that these persons are supposed to leave, and they were supposed to have left. But what does it mean? It means that the African National Congress must be voted out of power, because it is the African National Congress politicians who continue to meddle and interfere in the running of this very important utility, much to the harm of the economy of South Africa, a harm that is irreparable. When you look at Eskom now, it is effectively technically insolvent. We see a national treasury that is now having to continue bailing out Eskom going forward. So the solution is to simply do away with the ANC government as let's say, oversight on Eskom. ANC government, the ministers of the ANC must be out if we are to save South Africa as a nation, because their continued oversight on Eskom, we will see once again that they will hire the wrong person for the job, motivated by nothing other than the politics.
All right, finally, if you can just give a yes or no response to this, would you agree that the South African Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy, and that is Gwede Mantashe, should also step aside? Well, I think we lost the guest already. Anyway, it's never-ending drama in South Africa's power sector, energy sector, and we will continue to follow and see if there's any improvements between now and March 31st, when the Ruyter eventually steps aside.